The sky above Earth was bleeding. It started with the glow, burning streaks tearing across the atmosphere like angry scars. Alien warships pierced the clouds, their hulls obsidian black and humming with unnatural energy. The invasion wasn't a whisper this time. It was thunder, blaring across every military comm channel. Earth had no more time to prepare. The final push had begun. From his ruined outpost on the edge of Alaska, Commander Holt watched the firelight flicker across the sky. The base had long been abandoned, stripped of personnel, left to rot like the promises that once filled its halls. He stood alone now, wrapped in a ragged coat, his breath misting in the frozen air. He'd been forgotten. 5 years ago, they'd called him a traitor, blamed him for the deaths at the Europa Gate. Never mind the truth. Never mind that he'd been right, that Earth's top brass had ignored his warnings about the alien infiltration. The politicians wanted a scapegoat, and Holt fit the bill. So they dishonorably discharged him and buried his name in disgrace. But they hadn't taken everything. Beneath the outpost, deep in the permafrost, was his secret. For years, he'd worked in silence, fueled by guilt, fury, and one last purpose. With scavenged tech, stolen data, and a mind sharper than most men realized, Holt built something the world forgot to fear. A warship, unlike anything Earth or its enemies had ever seen. He called her Wraith. She'd never flown, never needed to. Until now. The emergency broadcast crackled on a handheld screen beside him. A desperate voice, a tired general begging any available asset to respond. Earth's defenses were crumbling, satellites down, colonies in blackout. Major cities, Los Angeles, New Tokyo, Berlin, were falling under orbital strikes. No one had expected the aliens to hit all at once, but Holt did, years ago. "Of course you bastards would wait until we're weak," he muttered, lighting a cigarette with shaky hands. "Cowards always wait for the right moment to gut you." The handheld blinked. Coordinates of the battlefield flickered across the screen. Earth's final resistance was mounting over the Atlantic, scrambling whatever ships were still functional. Dozens of alien destroyers were breaching orbit. The end was coming fast. And Earth didn't have a chance, unless the Wraith flew. Holt took one last drag of his cigarette and stomped it into the snow. "Let's see if the world still remembers me." He descended the icy staircase behind the outpost. Steel doors groaned open, revealing a chamber glowing with eerie blue light. The Wraith loomed above, sleek and silent, its hull designed for one purpose: domination through invisibility. Every inch of her was engineered for stealth. Cloaked technology derived from both alien wreckage and Earth's black archives. She didn't hum. She didn't spark. She simply waited. As he strapped into the command chair, Holt's fingers hovered over the ignition. The dashboard blinked to life, scanning his vitals, reactivating systems that hadn't stirred in years. Systems check, weapon systems online, cloak integrity, optimal, quantum drive stable, the AI chimed. It had no personality. He'd stripped that out years ago. Too many voices in his head already. He locked eyes with the screen, then activated comms. "This is Commander Holt," he said coldly. "To Earth Defense Fleet. Authorization code Echo 65 Fracture." A pause. "Repeat, identify yourself." I said, "This is Commander Holt, and I'm about to save your ungrateful asses. Watch your six." He killed the signal before they could respond. Then, with a low, building hum, the Wraith decloaked and rose from the ice like a vengeful ghost. The Wraith punched through the atmosphere like a knife through silk, her cloaking field shimmering faintly before vanishing into nothingness. From the surface, she was invisible again, just as planned. Holt kept his hands steady on the control panel, jaw tight as the pressure increased. The G-forces weren't as brutal as they could have been. The Wraith had gravity dampening built into her spinal hull design. Holt had paid for that comfort in sleepless nights and bloodied hands. He soared high into the sky, past the mesosphere, past the wreckage of burned-out satellites, until the black canvas of space welcomed him back like an old enemy. And then he saw it. The battlefield was chaos. Dozens of alien ships, dark and angular, cruised in terrifying synchrony. Their formation was a slow noose tightening around Earth's last defensive fleet. Clunky, outdated vessels clinging to life through sheer desperation. You could spot the Earth ships easily. They were the ones taking the hits. Holt's eyes narrowed as he took in the slaughter. A missile cruiser burst into flames near Mars Transfer Point 3, its hull peeling open like a flower under pressure. There were no escape pods, just bright blue vapor and the sound of screaming, cut short by silence. He didn't flinch. Not anymore. "Open forward scope," Holt said flatly. The view expanded, digital overlays mapping friend and foe. Red markers overwhelmed the screen. The alien fleet wasn't just aggressive, they were surgical, every move calculated, every attack followed by silence, no theatrics, no warning, just cold extermination. But that's when he saw it. Them. Earth's surviving forces had regrouped over the Atlantic Hemisphere, what was left of them. 3 cruisers, maybe a dozen interceptors, and 1 half-destroyed orbital railgun platform trying to power up. They were flying blind, communications jammed by alien tech Holt had warned Earth's brass about years ago. And then, static. "Unknown vessel. You're in violation of Treaty Protocol 7. Identify or prepare to be engaged." It was the fleet. Of course, they didn't believe it was him. Holt didn't blame them. He toggled his voice modulator off. No bravado, just raw truth. "This is Commander Holt of the Wraith," he said into the silence. "Your line is about to go dark. When it does, watch the east flank." And with that, he cut the comms. He didn't have time to explain to bureaucrats and scared junior officers what he was about to do. He wasn't here to play hero. He wasn't even here to save Earth. Not really. He was here to settle the debt. He shifted the Wraith into combat mode. The hum of the cloak dropped to a low pulse, replaced by an eerie stillness, like the breath before the plunge. The console lit up with weapon systems, plasma lances, kinetic warheads, particle destabilizers, all experimental, all untested in real battle. Perfect. The Wraith swooped down under the alien vanguard, threading the space between enemy lines so closely that had she not been invisible, they would have torn her apart in seconds. Holt kept his breathing shallow, fingers twitching as he guided her behind the lead destroyer. It was massive, maybe 400 meters across, shaped like a predator's skull, its weapon mounts glowing in deep crimson. Holt didn't hesitate. "Target acquired. Fire!" The Wraith's dorsal lance ignited, a needle of blue fire, silent in the void, and pierced the destroyer's shield in under 2 seconds. It sliced through the hull like it wasn't even there. No explosion. Just collapse. The alien ship folded in on itself, its core reactor destabilizing with a soft shockwave that shimmered the stars. And just like that, one of their flagships was gone. He heard the comms explode behind him. "Who the hell was that? Did we just lose the Juggernaut? Something's in the dark. Repeat, something's out there." Panic. Sweet panic. Holt smirked and banked hard left, diving under another cruiser. This one fired blindly, guessing at his trajectory. A bolt of plasma zipped past the Wraith's wing. Too slow. He slammed the thrusters and brought the Wraith up alongside the enemy's belly, a blind spot in their shield array. Holt launched a string of kinetic pods. Heavy slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds. They punched holes the size of cars straight through the alien ship's core. shredding its systems from the inside. 2 down. "Unknown ship, we see you," a voice crackled over emergency frequencies. "You're not broadcasting IFF. Who are you?" He ignored them. No time. 3 interceptors peeled off from the main alien force and swung back toward the source of the attack. Sleek, fast, deadly, but not fast enough. Holt threw the Wraith into a full spin, activating reverse thrusters mid-twist. The ship tumbled violently, but came out facing the enemy head-on. He armed the particle destabilizer, a weapon banned by 3 galactic treaties Earth wasn't even supposed to know existed. "Eat this," he muttered. The destabilizer burst forward, invisible until contact. When it hit the lead interceptor, the ship simply melted like wax under flame, disintegrating at the molecular level. The others scattered, too late. Holt looped upward, tagging the next one with a micro-missile, which exploded inside its propulsion vent. The final one panicked, turned tail, and ran. "Cowards!" he hissed, spitting into a can beside him. The battlefield was shifting. The remaining Earth ships now had an opening. The aliens were backing off slightly, regrouping. Confused. For the first time in years, Holt felt something like satisfaction. But it didn't last. A new ship entered the field. Something huge, cloaked in metallic black and glowing with red glyphs. It hovered above the planet like a second moon. Holt's stomach sank. He knew that shape. He'd seen it in captured files, in dreams that turned into nightmares. It was their command vessel, the High Mind's personal dreadnought. He thought it had been destroyed during the Mars uprising. Clearly, he was wrong. The dreadnought sent a single pulse through the battlefield. Every alien ship stopped. Then, like wolves on command, they turned, all of them, toward the Wraith. They'd found him. "Shit," Holt breathed, slamming every button he could. The Wraith surged to full power. Cloak re-engaged, weapons reloaded. But it was too late for stealth. The aliens had locked on. The first wave came fast. Plasma nets, tractor pulses, and gravity mines laced through the void, forcing Holt into tighter and tighter maneuvers. He weaved through the chaos, shields flaring, hull plates groaning under the stress. A net grazed the Wraith's wing. Sparks flew. The ship screamed. He bit down hard, blood filling his mouth. He didn't stop. He wouldn't stop. If this was how he went out, he'd make it count. He turned the ship hard toward the dreadnought. "Override safety protocols. All forward weapons. Target command bridge," he growled. "Warning, weapon systems at critical heat levels. Firing will result in—" "Do it!" The Wraith surged again, louder than before, heat tearing at her seams. Holt's vision blurred as the weapons aligned. He fired everything. Plasma, kinetics, particle disruptors. Every weapon lanced forward into one glorious blaze of war. The dreadnought responded. Its shields deflected the first barrage, but the second broke through. Holt saw it. A breach. Just a crack. The Wraith hurtled toward the opening, charging like a demon out of hell. Then, darkness. A silent explosion of light. Holt was thrown backward, slamming into the rear panel as the Wraith went limp. Systems dead. Lights gone. The cold returned, biting and merciless. But he was still breathing, and outside, the dreadnought's command deck was gone. He'd hit it. He'd hurt it. Through blurry eyes, Holt laughed. A dry, ragged sound. Not because he'd won, but because for the first time in years, he finally mattered again. Smoke drifted through the Wraith's command deck, thin and acrid. Holt groaned as he pushed himself upright, his hands trembling and blood trickling down the side of his face. Sparks danced from exposed panels, and warning lights blinked uselessly across shattered screens. The silence wasn't peace. It was the kind of stillness that came after a hurricane, where everything's too quiet and survival feels like a mistake. He looked around. The ship was holding. Barely. Emergency lights cast everything in a red haze, like the wraith had bled from every seam. Life support was down to 28%. Gravity was fluctuating, making it hard to stay upright. And worst of all, the core was silent. He pressed a switch to reboot the primary reactor. Nothing. Of course, he muttered bitterly, staggering over to a side panel. Manual overrides. He'd put them in for this very reason. The AI had warned him this could happen. Unregulated energy release during full-spectrum firing could short-circuit half the Wraith's systems. But Holt hadn't cared. He still didn't. He wanted the dreadnought bleeding. And now it was. Outside the shattered viewport, space was a graveyard. Alien ships drifted, some broken, others circling like sharks with hesitation in their movement. The dreadnought hadn't exploded, but Holt had torn a chunk from its bridge. The thing was wounded. And in their hive-like minds, that was unthinkable. He smiled, teeth red with blood. Now you know how it feels, you bastards. But his satisfaction didn't last long. A soft chime echoed from a half-functioning monitor, an incoming signal. Not from Earth, not from the fleet. This one came directly from the dreadnought. Holt's face went still. He approached the console and tapped the panel. The screen flickered. Then a shape appeared. Humanoid, but wrong in subtle, horrifying ways. Its eyes were too deep, too black. Its voice, when it came, slithered through the speakers like poison in silk. You, again. Holt leaned forward, every nerve alert. You remember me? You are the defect, the rogue, the one who tried to stop the Europa awakening. You mean the invasion, he snapped. The creature tilted its head, as if amused. Invasion is a human word. We cleanse, we adapt. You were not ready. You still are not. Yet I carved your command ship open with a prototype and half a conscience, Holt replied, eyes narrowing. So tell me, what does that make you? The alien didn't blink. Marked. And the screen went dead. Holt stepped back, his stomach tightening. They knew him. This wasn't just a fleet chasing a ghost. This was personal. They'd marked him, branded him in their hive mind as a threat, a disruption, and they were coming. But something else hit him harder. Europa. The invasion hadn't started today. It had started then. The Europa incident wasn't a skirmish. It was the first attempt to breach Earth through stealth and infiltration. The brass had called him paranoid, a loose cannon. They'd shut him down, stripped his rank, buried his reports. And now? Now they were all dying for it. He staggered to a secondary console, smashing the manual reboot with a fist. Sparks flew. Something in the floor rumbled. Then, dimly, the core began to stir. Not full power, but enough. Just enough. Wraiths A. I crackled to life in a barely audible whisper. Core at 14%. Weapons offline. Thrusters at 22%. Suggest immediate retreat. Holt shook his head, wiping blood from his temple. No retreat. Patch me into Earth Fleet Command. Static. Then a voice, young, nervous, and scared. This is Commander Ralston. Who the hell is this? Holt, he said. The ship that saved your flank. There was a pause. You're supposed to be dead. Yeah, I get that a lot. Listen, there's a command ship in orbit. I heard it, but it's not dead. You've got 20 minutes max before it retaliates. Pull every remaining ship back to Lunar Shadow. Use the debris as cover. Buy me time. Ralston hesitated. You don't give orders anymore. No, Holt growled, but I still give chances. And with that, he cut the line again. He couldn't rely on Earth. They'd already failed him once. They'd wasted decades preparing for the wrong war, building ships that looked good on parade, but cracked in real combat. Holt had to finish what he started alone. He climbed down to the lower deck, an access hatch sealed for emergencies. The crawl space stank of coolant and burning wires, but he forced himself through. Sparks danced overhead. The ship groaned like a wounded animal. Everything was broken, but not dead. He reached the secondary systems bay. Inside, shielded behind a glass chamber, sat the Wraith's secret weapon, something no one on Earth knew about. A core piece of alien tech, a live one. He'd recovered it after Europa, ripped it from the corpse of a scout ship during cleanup. Earth Command had refused to authorize tests, called it unstable, incomprehensible, dangerous. They were right. But Holt had studied it, learned it, adapted it. The Wraith's cloaking, its weapons, even its shape, all of it had evolved from that artifact. And now, in a final gamble, he was going to activate the source. He opened the panel. The thing inside pulsed like a heart, glowing dark violet. When he touched the interface, it shuddered under his fingers like it recognized him. "Link it," he whispered. "Merge it with the core." The ship protested. "Warning, merging alien tech may lead to catastrophic failure." He ignored it. He was past warnings. He flipped the override. The artifact screamed. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was alive. Holt clutched his head as visions filled his skull. Cities burning, stars dying, voices whispering things he couldn't understand. And then, silence. The lights came back on. All of them. Wraith's voice returned, clearer than ever. "Power at 112%. Weapon systems online. Core stabilized. New systems unlocked." Holt fell to one knee, breathing hard. Whatever it had done, it worked. He staggered back to the cockpit. The controls were glowing with new symbols, new possibilities. Energy surged through the Wraith like blood in veins. Outside, the battlefield was shifting again. The alien fleet had noticed the Wraith was alive, and worse, awake. They weren't attacking now. They were retreating to the dreadnought, preparing for something big. Holt sat down, fingers steady on the console. He spoke, not to Earth, not to the fleet, but to the void itself. "Round 2. The Wraith screamed forward, faster than before, cloak breaking into shards of light. He pushed the engines past design limits, slamming toward the dreadnought with singular focus. The command ship launched everything, fighters, drones, shield disruptors, but the Wraith didn't stop. She was no longer a weapon. She was vengeance. Holt ducked and weaved through fire, launching decoy pods and firing precision blasts that tore interceptors apart like paper. The Wraith danced between them, alive with power, faster than thought. He punched through the dreadnought's forward shield with a seismic disruptor blast, then drove the Wraith straight into the breach. Alarms screamed. The interior of the alien ship flashed with strange light. Gravity twisted. Holt's vision blurred as the Wraith skidded inside the dreadnought's inner corridor, deep in enemy territory. This was suicide. It was also his plan. "Core overload. Prepare final charge," he whispered, sweat pouring down his face. The Wraith's systems began to glow white-hot. If he couldn't kill the fleet, he'd decapitate the head, right here, right now. But as he armed the core, the screen lit up. Another image, another voice. "You are Holt." It wasn't the high mind. It was something deeper, older. A voice not from the fleet, but from the artifact. "You were meant to die. You chose not to." Holt's jaw clenched. "Who are you? Not your enemy, not your savior. But we see now why they fear you." The core blinked red. "Do you wish to end this?" Holt hesitated, not because of fear, but because he saw now. There was something bigger, older. The war wasn't just between Earth and invaders. It was part of something cosmic, something layered. Holt wasn't just fighting aliens. He was waking up the galaxy, and he'd just declared war on everything. "Still," he answered. "Yes." Then, he fired the core. The blast from the Wraith's core surged through the dreadnought's interior like a flood of light and thunder. Holt felt the ship buck beneath him, every inch of metal vibrating as the energy discharge tore through decks, systems, and living things alike. The scream of metal and the shriek of something not quite organic rang in his ears, until the sound blurred into a single, unending roar. But it didn't kill him, and it didn't kill them. He opened his eyes, blinking against the glare of emergency strobes. The Wraith was still intact. Barely. Half her systems were offline, but she'd survived the suicide plunge. Holt hadn't planned to live through this, and yet here he was, bruised, burned, and still breathing. Outside the cracked canopy, the dreadnought hadn't exploded. Not completely. It was shifting, changing. He watched in grim horror as the alien vessel's hull began to reshape, folding and reforming like it was alive. Panels peeled back. Organic matter slithered across the metal. The gaping wound the Wraith had torn into its center began to close, slowly, painfully, like a beast regenerating after being gutted. "Son of a bitch," Holt whispered. The thing wasn't a ship. It was a being. And now it was waking up, the artifact, the alien tech he'd fused with the Wraith. It hadn't just enhanced the ship. It had awakened something ancient. Holt realized it too late. This wasn't just about Earth, or the war, or even the aliens attacking his home. This was about a weapon buried by something older than civilization itself. Something locked away for a reason, and he had just broken the seal. "Core status," he rasped, coughing on smoke. The Wraith's voice returned, fractured but audible. "Overload cycle complete. Power reserves at 39%. External environment, unstable. Hostile biometal response detected." What does that mean in English? The screen lit up with real-time footage from the exterior cameras. The dreadnought's internal structure was coming to life. Walls were folding into claws, hallways twisting into rib cages, black tendrils spread across the bulkheads, moving with purpose. Lights flickered like neurons firing. Holt saw something slither past the window, vaguely humanoid, skinless, its body made of raw muscle and fused armor. They weren't machines. They weren't entirely organic either. They were both. And now they were inside the ship, crawling toward him like cells racing to a wound. Shit. He pushed off the console, grabbing the emergency rifle clipped to the underside of his seat. It was old tech. Nothing fancy, just solid kinetic rounds and a full charge. He didn't have a plan anymore. No escape route, no reinforcements, just blood, fire, and a few last bullets. Holt kicked the cockpit hatch open and stepped into the main corridor of the Wraith. The ship moaned beneath his feet, bulkheads glowing with residual heat. Something thudded on the roof above, heavy and fast. Then again, and again. They were on top of the ship, trying to get in. "Internal defenses online?" he barked. "Only 22% functional. Rear defense turrets offline. Hallway turrets reactivated." "Then hold them off." The Wraith answered, not with words, but gunfire. The corridor behind him lit up as twin turrets emerged from the walls, spitting lead and plasma into the darkness. Screeches followed, wet, inhuman. Then silence. Holt pressed forward, climbing towards the escape chamber. Not to flee, but to launch a final strike. There was one thing left. The Wraith's last failsafe, built deep into the engine room, an overcharged fusion bomb, designed to detonate in a worst-case scenario. He'd never thought he'd need it. He never wanted to. But now, it was the only choice. He made it halfway up the stairs before the ceiling tore open. The creature dropped through, 7 feet tall, bulging with sinew and dripping metal. No eyes, no face, just a smooth helmet-like skull and a gaping maw of metal teeth. Holt fired without thinking. 3 shots. The first 2 hit center mass. Did nothing. The third struck the creature's leg, knocking it off balance. He rolled left, barely dodging the swipe of a claw that gouged into the wall behind him. "Damn you!" he hissed. He emptied the clip. The rounds sparked off armor, punched into soft tissue, but it kept moving, slower now, but relentless. Holt grabbed a broken pipe from the floor and swung as it lunged. The metal cracked across its head, buying him seconds, enough to dive into the engine bay and slam the door shut behind him. Locks hissed. The sound of fists pounding echoed in his ears. He staggered to the bomb. It looked like nothing. Just a cylinder the size of a fuel tank, humming with faint energy. Holt flipped the panel open and keyed in the sequence. Authorization Holt Black Line 0. The bomb beeped. Detonation in 60 seconds. He leaned back against the wall, breathing hard. This was it. He'd kill the dreadnought from the inside, burn everything, take these monsters with him. No hero's ending, just a final stand. And then, a sound, not from the hallway, not from the ship, inside his mind. "You will not die here." Holt's eyes widened. The voice wasn't from the wraith, it was from the artifact. Suddenly light poured from the core chamber. Violet, blinding, consuming. He screamed, but not in pain, in shock. Memories, thoughts, images, none of them his. Worlds burning, civilizations erased, wars fought in silence across dimensions, 1,000 alien minds overlapping into one. And then he saw himself, not as a man, but as a variable, an unknown, a contagion. "You are not part of the plan," the voice said, "but you changed it." The bomb's timer blinked. 27 seconds. "What the hell do you want from me?" Holt shouted. "Choice." What choice? Retreat or evolve? He didn't understand. The Wraith's systems flickered, his vision blurred. The artifact pulsed again, and he felt it, merging deeper into the ship, into him. "You want me to become one of you?" he growled. "Number, we want you to become what you are." The timer hit 15. Holt stared at the console. He could let it count down. Destroy them. Destroy himself, or... He slammed his fist into the panel. Abort sequence. The bomb silenced. He didn't know why he did it. Maybe he wanted answers. Maybe he was tired of fighting. Or maybe in the darkest corner of his soul, he wanted revenge on something even bigger than these monsters. The dreadnought groaned around him. But the creatures outside stopped, retreated, backed away, as if obeying. And then the ship opened, not like a hatch, like a flower, and Holt, inside the Wraith, was lifted through the center, rising from the dreadnought's chest like a phoenix. The alien fleet watched, silent, motionless. Then they turned and fled, retreated into deep space, leaving Earth's orbit. No more attacks, no retaliation, just silence. Holt stood in the cockpit, watching it all. The Wraith hovered in place. No one called him. No one asked what happened. No one knew, except him, and the thing inside him. "You changed everything," the voice said, softer now. "Good," he muttered. "They had it coming." The silence lasted for hours. No more alien transmissions. No more battleships charging into Earth's orbit. Just void and wreckage. The enemy had fled. But not because they were defeated. They'd retreated like an army that realized it had made a mistake. Like a predator who bit into something poisonous and decided not to try again. Inside the Wraith, Holt paced slowly, half expecting it all to be a trick. His muscles ached. His mind burned. He hadn't slept in what felt like days. The pulse of the alien artifact still hummed faintly through the walls. It was quieter now, but never truly silent. He touched a panel beside him. Status? The Wraith's voice came back, steady now. Structural damage, 42%. Core stabilized. Alien interference, dormant. Earth fleet requesting communication. He stared at the blinking comms light. They finally wanted to talk. Patch them in. A moment of static. Then a voice. Young, polished, but nervous. Commander Ralston. This is Earth Defense Command. Unidentified pilot, identify yourself. Holt leaned in, slow and deliberate. I'm not unidentified, he said, voice rough. I'm Commander Holt, the man you court-martialed and left for dead. The silence on the other end wasn't technical. It was personal. Then another voice replaced Ralston's. An older one. Calmer. Holt, this is General Thorne. Holt's jaw clenched. Thorne had been one of the men who signed off on his exile. Smooth-talking bureaucrat dressed in medals he never earned. A man who never fought a single battle outside a polished war table. I thought you were rotting in some off-grid bunker, Thorne said. You thought wrong, Holt replied coldly. But I did rot. Just long enough to build something your engineers were too scared to even imagine. We saw what you did, Thorne said, voice flat. You saved lives. We owe you that. But the tech on that ship, those energy signatures, we've never seen anything like it. You used alien enhancements, unauthorized, possibly unstable. There it was. Not even a full hour since he stopped Earth from burning, and they were already sharpening the knives. Let me make this real simple, Holt said. That ship out there, the Dreadnought, I blew out its spine. Your fleet couldn't even scratch it. The Wraith made that happen. I made that happen. So if you think I'm going to hand this over to your desk jockeys to be dissected and shelved, think again. Thorne didn't raise his voice. Holt, you're a war hero, but you're also a security risk. And there it was. A risk. He didn't laugh. It wasn't funny anymore. I'm bringing the Wraith in, he said finally. Not because you asked, but because I've got things to say, and you're going to hear all of it. Understood, Thorne said. But Holt knew what that tone meant. He wasn't going home. He was walking into a cage. The Wraith descended slowly through Earth's atmosphere, trailing faint smoke and fire as she came in over the Atlantic. Below, the planet looked wounded. Coastal cities blacked out, communication towers reduced to scrap. Skies filled with the lingering haze of orbital debris. The war hadn't ended. It had paused. The scars were everywhere. As he approached the Defense Command landing platform outside the ruins of what used to be the New Geneva complex, Holt saw the greeting party. 4 gunships, 2 squadrons of armed guards, and a man in a black coat standing front and center. Not Thorne. Holt landed the Wraith, but kept the cloak system on standby. If things turned, he wasn't dying on a landing pad surrounded by nervous kids with itchy trigger fingers. He stepped out alone. The air was colder than he remembered. The man in the black coat stepped forward. Commander Holt, I'm Director Kepler, Intelligence Division. Of course you are, Holt muttered. Thorne send you to clean up? Thorne's no longer in charge. After today, there's a new chain of command. And I'm guessing it starts with you? Number it starts with you. That caught Holt off guard, but not enough to trust the bastard. Kepler gestured toward a waiting transport. We've got survivors to debrief, systems to restore. The war might be paused, but it isn't over. Whatever you did up there, it scared the hell out of them. They won't come back without overkill. I hope they bring it, Holt said darkly. I'm not done with them either. Kepler nodded slowly. And the ship? She stays under my command. That's going to be a hard sell to the Council. Then let him choke on it. Kepler almost smiled. "Walk with me." They moved through the ruins of New Geneva. Broken glass, scorched walls, the smell of ozone still thick in the air. It had been Earth's pride, command center for a dozen nations. Now it was a burned-out symbol of failure. "We had no chance against them," Kepler admitted. "Even with our best weapons, they were coordinated, surgical, until you appeared." "They weren't afraid of our guns," Holt said. "They were afraid of something else." "The artifact?" Holt didn't answer. Not yet. Kepler glanced sideways at him. "We scanned your ship. Some of what's in there, it's not just alien, it's old, and not from any known galactic source. Because it wasn't meant to be found." "Then why now?" "Because I dug where I wasn't supposed to," Holt said, "and they noticed." Kepler nodded grimly. "Then we need to dig deeper. And we need you." That was the part that unsettled Holt most. They weren't trying to kill him anymore. They wanted to use him. Inside the debriefing chamber, he sat across from a dozen government officials, scientists, and high-ranking military officers, who all looked at him like he was both savior and time bomb. They asked questions. Too many. What was the alien vessel's purpose? Why did it respond to you? What is the artifact? He answered some, dodged others. But the truth was simple. Holt didn't fully know what he'd become part of, only that something ancient had reached back and chosen him. Not because he was special, but because he was willing. He'd stopped caring what it cost him, and that made him dangerous. After hours of probing, Kepler pulled him aside. "There's something you need to see." They took a secured lift underground into the vaults beneath the old Geneva base, what used to be Black Project territory. Inside a sealed chamber, Kepler led him to a stasis unit. Frozen inside it was another artifact, not like the one in the Wraith, smaller, but pulsing, alive. "You're not the only one," Kepler said quietly. Holt stared at it, felt it. The voice in his head stirred, faint but curious. "They've been here longer than we thought," he whispered. Kepler nodded. "And now we've drawn their attention." They locked the second artifact away like it was a relic in a museum. Climate-controlled chamber, magnetic seals, armed guards with high-clearance badges and dead eyes. But Holt knew better. He didn't look at it like a piece of alien history. He looked at it like a warning. The pulse from the core was slower than the one in the Wraith, more subtle. But the beat was there. Faint, measured, alive. It watched, even in its silence. He stood before it, hands clenched behind his back. Kepler waited by the door, not rushing him. "You knew this was here," Holt finally said. Kepler didn't flinch. "Recovered 5 years ago in South Africa, buried in an impact crater beneath the desert range. We thought it was dormant." "And it is." "Define dormant," Kepler said, voice dry. Holt shook his head. "This is how it starts. Quiet, passive. Then something wakes it up." "Like what?" "Like me." Kepler sighed, stepped forward. "You don't trust anyone, do you?" "I trust what I bleed for. That list's pretty damn short." Kepler let the silence hang before nodding. "Fair." They left the vault, the door sealing behind them with a low hiss. Holt didn't look back. He already felt it in his chest, like something magnetic, as if a thread now connected him to it, faint but unbreakable. Back in the makeshift operations room, Earth's leadership was scrambling to piece together a recovery plan. The alien fleet had pulled back, but the scars remained. Entire nations crippled, colonies offline, food networks disrupted. Martial law was in effect across half the globe, and amid the chaos, rumors spread like fire. Stories of a ghost ship, a nameless commander with black eyes and a cursed vessel. A man who'd killed a god and lived. They were talking about him. And he hated it. He wasn't a hero, he was a mistake that worked. One morning, Kepler approached him with a hard expression and a tablet full of classified files. "We've got a problem," he said. Holt barely glanced at the data. "Just one?" "This is different. One of our deep space listening posts picked up a distress signal. It wasn't Earthborn, and it wasn't alien either. It matched the artifact's energy signature." Holt stared at the screen now. Coordinates. A distant star cluster near the edge of explored space, far beyond Earth's jurisdiction. No colonies, no known life. "What's out there?" he asked. Kepler's tone dropped. "Nothing. That's the problem. Something called us." They both stood there in silence. Eventually, Kepler said, "We're sending a recon team." "Wrong move. We need intel. You'll send good men to die for data you won't understand." Kepler locked eyes with him. "Then you go." Holt didn't answer right away. The old part of him, the one trained to follow orders, to trust the system, it had been burned out long ago. All that remained was instinct, the gut-level sense that they were now dancing to someone else's rhythm. Still he nodded. "I'll take the Wraith. No one else." Kepler exhaled like he'd expected the answer. "You leave at dawn." That night Holt sat in the Wraith's cockpit, staring at the canopy where the stars waited beyond atmosphere. The ship was quiet. But the artifact hummed deeper than before, like it knew the journey ahead. He whispered to it, "You led them here. Now you show me why." The next morning, without ceremony or fanfare, the Wraith lifted off. No escort, no parade, just one man in a ship held together by vengeance and buried secrets. The trip was longer than standard jumps. The Wraith burned through quantum fuel like a starving animal. The journey left Holt drained, days blurring together into a mix of hallucinations, memory flashes, and dreams that weren't his. He saw worlds, burned, fallen, screaming voices of a dozen species warning the same thing. It wakes, it spreads, it changes everything. When he finally emerged from jump space, the sector was empty, cold, a graveyard of black stars and frozen light. Then his sensors lit up. One ship, dead, adrift in orbit around a shattered moon. He closed in, eyes scanning every detail. The hull was human, an old research vessel. Call sign EDF Regulus. Holt frowned. "How the hell did you get this far?" The Regulus had vanished 3 years ago. Disavowed. Written off. Crew presumed lost. But here it was. Silent, scarred, still bleeding atmosphere from a tear in its rear thrusters. Holt docked the Wraith cautiously, boarded with a rifle drawn. Inside, it was colder than space, frost on walls, bodies suspended in zero gravity, eyes open, faces frozen mid-scream. They didn't die from vacuum exposure. They died in terror. He moved slowly, checking logs, flicking through broken data panels. Then he found it. A video log. Static at first, then a voice, ragged, panicked. "This is Commander Elric of the Regulus. If anyone finds this, don't respond to the signal. It's not a distress call. It's a trap. The artifact we recovered, it's not a beacon. It's a door." The screen flickered. Crew started seeing things, hearing things. Then they stopped being themselves. "We thought it was infection, biological. But it's deeper. It gets inside the brain, changes what you are." Elric leaned close to the camera, eyes sunken. "It doesn't want Earth. It wants our evolution. And it's using us to reach them." The feed cut. Holt stood in silence, his rifle low. A door, not a signal. He understood now. Earth had never been the goal. It was just the keyhole. And someone had turned the lock. He returned to the Wraith, fired the engines, and left the Regulus behind, drifting in silence toward nothing. As he prepared to jump back, the Wraith's voice broke in. "Long-range scans. New signal detected." Holt's blood froze, not from the Regulus, not from Earth, from deep space. Hundreds, thousands, millions. Artifact signatures, awakening, moving, and all of them heading for Earth. The jump back to Earth wasn't clean. Holt emerged from the quantum tunnel in a haze of alarms and overheating systems. The Wraith screamed at him, error codes lighting the cockpit like red stars. He barely had time to register the damage before Earth filled the canopy, distant and unaware, floating in the dark. But he saw it now. From out here, with clarity born of too many dead ships and too many nightmares, Earth didn't know what was coming. He opened the channel to Defense Command. "This is Commander Holt. Do not respond. Just listen." He paused, then continued, voice firm but hollow. "Your signal. The one we thought was a beacon? It's not. It's bait. The Regulus was lured out there years ago and never came back. Not because it got lost, but because it opened the wrong door." Static crackled. "I've seen the door. I've seen what's behind it. And now, they're coming." He uploaded the Regulus's final transmission, hard-coded with encryption tags even Kepler couldn't deny. Then he leaned back and waited. The silence on the channel lasted 3 minutes. Then Kepler's voice came in, low, tired. "You saw them?" Holt didn't answer directly. "There are thousands, maybe more, all keyed to the artifact signature. They're not ships, they're life forms, living technology, evolving, and they're converging on our planet like it's the last puzzle piece." Another pause. What did they want? To finish what they started. Back on Earth, panic didn't unfold in headlines. It was colder than that. Defense Command sealed every gate, locked down every outpost. Colonies were ordered to go dark. The moon bases cut their signals. Anyone listening could hear the quiet, breathless preparations of a species suddenly aware it wasn't alone. And it wasn't in control. Holt brought the Wraith down over Iceland, one of the few places not crushed by the first wave. He landed her in the hollow of a mountain glacier, hidden beneath stealth fields and automated cannons. No official welcome this time. Just frost, shadows, and the growing hum inside his chest. The artifact had changed. It no longer whispered. It called. Holt stood in the engine bay, shirt off, staring at his reflection in the metal wall. He looked older, harder. His veins glowed faintly under the skin. The whites of his eyes were darker, tinged with gray. Something inside him had shifted, like his body was no longer just his. "Status," he growled. The Wraith responded, her voice smoother than before, less machine, more alive. "Artifact integration, 62%. Biomechanical link, stable. Vital signs, evolving." He didn't want to know what that meant. Kepler arrived in person that night. No guards, just a single dropship and a face full of stress. He stepped off the ramp, coat flapping in the wind, and nodded toward Holt. "We're in deep," he said. "You don't say." "The Council's fractured. Half want to surrender, half want to fight. The rest want to pretend this isn't happening." "Sounds about right." Kepler lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. "You were right, Holt. We weren't ready." "You still aren't." Kepler exhaled smoke through his teeth. "You ever think we're not supposed to win this?" Holt didn't answer. He already knew the answer. Kepler glanced at the Wraith. "She's changing too, isn't she? She's not a ship anymore." "Then what is she?" Holt met his eyes. "She's listening." The conversation was cut short by an incoming alert, a proximity ping from deep space. Holt rushed inside, bringing the Wraith's systems online. "Show me." A map unfolded, a holographic wave rippling with dots, dozens, then hundreds, then more, forming a line across space, converging on Earth's solar system. Each one radiating the same signature. Each one carrying death. "ETA?" he asked. 3 days. Holt turned slowly to Kepler. "You don't have enough firepower to stop them." Kepler's jaw twitched. "Then what the hell do we do?" "We don't stop them," Holt said. "We trap them." It sounded insane the moment he said it. But the thought gripped him with the clarity of instinct, not strategy, not tactics, something deeper, something the artifact wanted. He knew what they were after. Not Earth, not him, but the artifact itself. The one in the Wraith and the one buried in Geneva's vault. They weren't tools. They were magnets, and Holt had one advantage left. He could turn the bait into a bomb. Kepler didn't argue. He just nodded. "I'll start evacuation protocols." Holt worked for the next 36 hours without sleep. He tore into the Wraith's core, jacked its systems into overload feedback loops, rewired the artifact housing to channel into a singularity pulse, a weapon no one had ever tested because no one had been suicidal enough to build one. Except Holt. By the second night, he was coughing blood. His skin burned under the surface. The veins in his arms shimmered with energy that didn't come from Earth. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. The alien fleet entered the solar system at dawn on the third day. Their arrival wasn't thunder. It was silence. They didn't announce themselves. They just appeared. Perfect geometry spreading across the void, dark shapes eclipsing stars. Earth defense opened fire, lasers, railguns, plasma lances. It didn't matter. The first wave of human ships was swallowed whole, consumed like dust. They never stood a chance. Holt watched from orbit, from inside the Wraith, fused to its command seat by nerve jacks, body half metal and mind stretched between signals. He was no longer just Holt. He was the Wraith, and together, they were the only chance Earth had left. He activated the core. The artifact screamed. Every enemy ship turned in unison, drawn to the surge. They broke formation, came for him, like moths to fire. Kepler's voice came through one last time. "You sure about this?" "No, but I'm sure I'm not human anymore." Then Holt closed the channel and opened the gates. The Wraith pulsed with power no human technology had ever contained before. Holt sat fused to the pilot's seat, the ship's tendrils coiled around his spine, the alien core burning through his chest like a second heart. He no longer felt pain. Not in the human sense. He felt raw purpose. Above him, Earth hung in the black like a bruised marble, its surface still scarred from the last assault, its atmosphere flickering under the strain of orbital shields and failing satellites. And around it, the enemy. Thousands of living ships, perfectly still, watching, waiting. Holt spoke into the dark. "Come and get me." The Wraith answered not with words, but with light. A radiant shockwave burst from the ship, expanding across the void, laced with quantum code from the artifact. It was more than a signal. It was a challenge. The ships responded immediately, breaking ranks and hurling forward like predators scenting wounded prey. But Holt wasn't wounded. He was transcending. As the first wave of alien vessels closed in, Holt spun the Wraith through the void. Her new form moved like a phantom, dodging beams of light, diving through gravity rips, firing projectiles laced with anti-neural disruptors. Every hit shredded the enemy, tearing their biomechanical flesh from steel bones. But for everyone destroyed, 3 more took its place. It was overwhelming, and it was exactly what he wanted. They weren't just chasing him. They were bound to him. The artifact had made sure of that. Holt accelerated toward the edge of the solar system, pulling them with him. Earth's defenders screamed warnings, begged him to fall back, tried to track his trail. But the Wraith was beyond communication now, beyond coordination. It had one mission: draw them away. As the fleet followed, Earth slowly fell behind, disappearing from his view. He knew he'd never see it again. And somehow, that made it easier. The farther he traveled, the deeper the change became. He wasn't dreaming anymore. He was seeing. The artifact showed him everything. Civilizations before humans, empires of star-born beings who lived in thought and energy. Wars fought not with weapons but with ideas, and always, at the center, these things, the others, the ones chasing him. They didn't conquer, they didn't destroy, they assimilated. They took what was different and made it theirs. The voice inside him, the one that had once warned, once whispered, was now quiet. Not absent, just watching, waiting to see what he would do. Finally, Holt reached the edge, the boundary between known and unknown, between light and the cold, unmarked void. There, he stopped. The enemy surrounded him. All of them. No guns fired, no threats, just silence. They waited, because they knew. This wasn't just another target, this was a choice. He could surrender, let the artifact unfold, become what they wanted, a seed that would rewrite human evolution, a vessel for their expansion. Or he could end it. The Wraith's core thrummed, alive with power. It had stored more than enough from the chase. It could release all of it now, in one burst, a quantum detonation. It wouldn't just kill Holt. It would shatter the artifact, rupture the neural threads that connected him to them, and collapse the entire local hyperspace corridor. No escape. No survivors. He sat there, sweat cold on his brow, eyes no longer human, and he remembered Europa, the betrayal, the years in exile, the silence of the stars. He'd never been a hero, but maybe he could die like one. He activated the detonation sequence. The Wraith screamed, a sound that tore through frequencies too high for ears. The enemy closed in. The core glowed. Holt leaned back. Burn in hell. The explosion didn't feel like heat. It felt like freedom. A light bloomed across the stars, so bright it seared the edges of the galaxy. The detonation consumed the enemy fleet in seconds. Their bodies broke apart, unraveled, evaporated into stardust. And then, silence. The Wraith was gone. So was Holt. So was the artifact. Earth survived. The fleet never returned. In the weeks that followed, Earth's skies cleared. Nations rebuilt. People whispered about the man who'd saved the world, and no one could agree whether he was real, or a ghost, or something else entirely. But far beyond the stars, in the quiet between galaxies, something stirred. A faint echo. A voice. You were not supposed to win. And somewhere, out in the void, a sliver of violet light blinked once, then vanished.